Hello, I'm Dave Feinlieb, and this is Beyond the Shelf. This show is an open exploration of the people and process behind e-commerce. Through conversations with innovators in the space, we learn the stories of these leaders and their strategies for e-commerce success. You can find out more about how we're helping leading brands and retailers build retail media and product detail page content faster than ever before at itsrapid.ai. My guest on today's show is Michael Reda, Head of Digital Design Insights and E-commerce for the Marzetti Company. Michael leads strategies and go-to-market activations for brands like Marzetti, New York Bakery, and Sister Schubert's, among others. He brings over 15 years of unique experience to his role with Marzetti, most recently leading e-commerce and digital for UpWest, a retail startup. Prior to UpWest, he held roles in brand management, agency, and sales, working with brands like Heinz Ketchup, Pedialyte, and DiGiorno. Michael holds a BBA from Ohio University and an MBA from the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University. He resides in Columbus, Ohio, with his wife, 2 daughters, and dog, Rosie. Please enjoy my conversation with Michael Reda. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Take us back, would you? How did you get your start in the space?
That intro sounds a lot more, makes me feel like I'm a lot more important than I actually am, but I thank you for that. I think for me, the starting in the space, I think about it's like kind of 3 layers to that onion. The brand space, the digital space, and e-com. For me, brand was something that came as kind of a secondary career after going back to school, spending some time in other areas like IT, where I realized that I wanted to be more in the forefront of the business. And so that was the biggest shift for me, moving from that side more into marketing and brand management. During that, my time on that side, I started to see sort of a growing area of digital in 2010, 2011, the early onset of social and things of that nature, and took a step into that area. And then that's kind of enabled me through a couple different stops to move towards e-commerce. So it's been an evolved sort of stair step across kind of 3 levels in that way, each providing their own, range of value and different sources of knowledge and understanding and challenges across the way. But that's for me, more of what led me to be in the situation I am today across those kind of 3 different steps over the years.
It's a great story. And will you take us and tell us, was there a person or a specific opportunity when you said, I want to go over to the brand side, this is the moment?
Yeah, not one specifically, but certainly there was a number of years working in IT where it was more of like, I don't like this. And so, looking around for other jobs and trying to find ways and realizing, I don't know what I was thinking in my undergrad years, but certainly wasn't probably thinking well enough and trying to connect the dots and just hadn't figured enough out in terms of what I wanted. And it took me the time to be working in environments of more back of the house support type functions to realize that those for me weren't the best fit, and that I wanted to be out in the market, seeing the fruits of my labor, online, on shelves, things of that nature, and just be more of a driver and an owner of the business. And for me, that was the better fit. And that took me down the road of trying to understand and evaluate potential areas of opportunity for future careers. Was introduced to kind of brand management in grad school through a friend from high school, actually, that was looking into it as well. And that led me down that road, and then evaluated different schools and found Kelley at Indiana, which was a great fit for me as a career switcher. The Consumer Marketing Academy and a lot of the functions that they have there really supported that transition. And so that really kind of set me on the path that it's led me here today.
Now, you got to work on some pretty iconic brands. Heinz Ketchup is well known in every household. Talk to us a little about brand management. What did you focus on when you were starting out there?
Yeah, so I started at Conagra, working on Healthy Choice, and then I spent some time on Chef Boyardee, which is a different, brand of iconic nature with different challenges, but still really well known. And so, at that point, really established the core tenets of kind of general management. A lot of forecasting, business analysis, data analysis, IRI, sales, things of that nature. got exposure to other areas like creative, package design, things of that nature, and then moved over to Heinz and was able to build on that with exposure to some other brands. So I worked across the frozen category for a bit. And then as I got more into digital, was able to expand that and touch some other brands like a Heinz ketchup. And that's a very different, somewhat more stressful and more challenging experience. When you think about a healthy choice or even within the Heinz portfolio at that point, a Smart Ones frozen, they're not carrying the equity and the awareness of a Heinz ketchup. And so there's, frankly, less to mess up, but there's also a lot more opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
But with ketchup too, when it's as established as it is, it's in as many households as it is, there's less areas to source growth. So there's different sorts of challenges that come with a brand like that versus a smaller or a lesser known, for sure.
What's something that you might do on a smaller brand that you'd like to be able to do with a more established brand? And I guess conversely, when you do have an established brand, how do you innovate there when it comes to some of the brand efforts?
Yeah, I think smaller just enables you to take more risks. I think depending on the size of the org, I don't know that a smaller brand within a larger org necessarily enables you to be any more agile, so to speak. But certainly I think there's less eyeballs, there's less layers of approval, there's less people that seem to care about what you're doing. And I think conversely, there's more opportunity and runway to sort of take some risks that may not be there, in the Heinz days, leaning into something like Facebook. We were moving on to Facebook when it was kind of beginning to be a relevant thing for brands, and you could get likes and things by offering coupons. And those days were nice and fun before it became terribly monetized. But, we didn't launch as a company onto Facebook immediately with Heinz Ketchup. We weren't doing some of those newer things with a brand like that. And so I just think it's a little bit more freeing, and it's a good experience to have. But I think, to the question, it's also good to get and see how those bigger brands work. It's more of a machine that there's certainly more checks and balances. There's more people involved. There's more risk to it. Obviously, I think generally with a brand that's the size of and relevancy of Heinz Ketchup, but I think also bears the name of the company. That's also a little bit of a different state. So they each comes with its own sets of challenges and sort of ways of working, but they're all, I think, unique and build the right thing. And I feel lucky to have had the experience to work on varying sizes, different categories, because you do get the building blocks as you grow to understand kind of some of those aspects and the nuances of how to navigate, one area and one brand versus another.
Tell me about eCom. You made the leap into eCom at the time. It was maybe a smaller area than it is now. And just curious how that came about, and also if you saw it as kind of a risk or an opportunity or a bit of both.
Yeah, I think when I first stepped into digital, eCom was even less of a relevant thing when I was at Heinz. And so at that point, I was working on the Smart Ones frozen brand. We were doing a lot of digital marketing at that point in those days. So more, display, a lot of email, getting into social, things of that nature. So stuff today that would be fairly sort of remedial, but at that point for us as an organization, and I think it overall was pretty new. And so, I saw it as an area of opportunity, far less structure than working within the brand, but being able to work with the brands themselves. And so stepped out of the traditional brand track at that point into a more of a digital role at Heinz, which was a bit of a risk or a non-traditional move. And so that really kind of set me on the course that took me through to getting some agency experience, getting some sales experience, and then leading into the role that I had prior to this, which was more purely focused on e-com. And at that point, that role was in retail and a direct-to-consumer brand that we were starting for Express. And so it felt at that point that was pretty stable. So the course of things worked its way out, but certainly there were windows of time that made it feel far less secure and stable as it does maybe today. And I think definitely, you're uncertain of where that world's going to go, especially, it's hard to think back to 2010, 11, 12 and think that digital or social wasn't going to grow to be what it is now, but it was all still fairly new at that point.
Brand new. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And now at T. Marzetti, tell us about the company, some amazing brands, and what are you working on?
Yeah, so we are, I would say a mid-size CPG food company. Have been around for a while, well over, I believe, 100 years here. Teresa Marzetti started a restaurant in downtown Columbus was making dressings in the upstairs, and that sort of fostered what became the company today. So our kind of landmark or marquee brand is Marzetti Dips and Dressings, and the company bears the name of T. Marzetti in honor of Teresa. So we're not huge, compared to some of the other companies that I've worked at and that we've discussed, but are have good size. Marzetti, a New York bakery, which is Texas toast, croutons, things like that. Sister Schubert's, which is a really relevant frozen dinner roll brand, and then we have a lot of licensed partnerships. So Buffalo Wild Wings, some new ones with Subway, Texas Roadhouse, et cetera, that are big parts of our retail business. And then we also have a pretty well-established food service side of the house as well. So we're pretty balanced between those two. For me, it's been a great, 3-ish years, a little bit more than 3, leading digital insights, design, and e-commerce. And so, I think from my world, I think of the first 3 as really arming the organization and our brands with the information and assets to deliver a greater go-to-market. And then with e-com, I've got a few folks on the team, and we really lead how we go to market across the digital shelf, our retail media, and things of that nature. So a lot of room to grow. I joined in May of 21. We had just kind of crossed 1 year of investing in e-commerce at that point as a company, and we've really doubled down over the time that I've been here to see a lot of growth and have it become a really relevant aspect of our business as we think about where we're going.
So you've got a day where you're thinking about analytics, and you've got a day where you're working on creative. How do you put those two together, and what do you like about both areas?
Yeah, so for me, it's a great fit because I probably get bored too easily, and I think I think what I craved when I stepped out of the brand track all those years ago was less structure, but being able to still be close enough to the brands and find that. So I feel like for me, it's a perfect home. I've done enough things over the years that I've realized what I like, and more importantly, I think what I don't. And so being close to brands, being close to the folks that are leading the brands and the way that we're working is a great place for me to be without actually having to be the one to go into the volume review meetings and some of those things that brand folks do that are I've done before, but I are less fun.
Yeah.
But I think I think for me, analytics and creative, they're all interrelated in some way. And so as we think about evaluating analytics, that looking at the numbers, it to me is what are we trying to understand from that? What's the story we're trying to tell? Even as we do consumer research, qualitative, quantitative, et cetera, we're trying to find a common thread, a story to help our brands either activate in a different way, think about their packaging in a different way, those kinds of things. And then to me, depending on how the two are related, or they could be directly related, that creative then comes to life potentially in a way that is, very driven by the analytics and understanding those kinds of things. Or it just could be a standalone and we're trying to evaluate it against core tenets. I think the common thread for me across all of it is what's your objective? And I think it's not necessarily terribly insightful in terms of it being really, this deep kind of view of things. But at the end of the day, there's a lot we have going on. And if we don't understand, what are the questions we're trying to answer? What's the objective we're trying to deliver? A lot of it can kind of feel very nebulous and confusing. But, conversely, if we do have that understanding, it provides a lot of clarity for the work that we have going on, regardless of whether it being, left or right brain or however you want to think about it.
Rules for the road right there. Rules for the road. So tell me about the content journey you've been on, a bit of an evolution the last few years. Where did you start out, and how's your content evolved?
Yeah, I think, for us as from an e-com perspective, when I started, we were about a year or so in. We didn't really focus on e-com or have much activity in e-com, being a grocery brand working with retailers. Obviously, COVID hit, and so my boss and others in the organization quickly pivoted, and I think smartly then realized that in some form or fashion this wasn't going away, and so made some changes into the org, and then I was hired, and so. The content that we had at that point in May of 21 through the remaining part of that fiscal year, probably through the next 9-12 months, it was pretty basic. I think it was stuff that was getting pulled through the syndication tools through the retailers. We had, angles of bottles and packages that were from every which way. We had copy that was kind of just copy and pasted from things of that nature. And so as you think about where that was, we really needed to take that holistic step back, as you're aware, and say, all right, what are we trying to do? What's the story we're trying to tell? And I think to combine that sort of analytics and creative is look at how are people shopping these websites and these retailer sites, and what can we do to better enhance that experience, both from a
Hmm.
visual perspective, which I think is more geared to the shopper, and then a written perspective, which is more geared towards the algorithms and things like that. And so we moved into a pretty aggressive phase of creation with our e-commerce agency, One Stone, who's now become Bluebird out of Northwest Arkansas, and they've really been critical in helping us understand how people are shopping and how we need to create content that's geared towards evaluating and elevating that experience. And so it's been great. I mean, our carousels are, for most of our core brands, have taken major steps forward. Realizing and to a large degree that, folks aren't always even clicking into the PDPs to really look through the carousel, but when they are, they don't need to see every corner of the salad dressing bottle. They're looking for other sources of information, and also then realizing the importance of all the stuff that's related to organic ranking and keyword research and things like that. So it's a journey. I think we're evolved to where we are. We feel really proud of where we've gotten to. We still have some room to grow with some of our other brands that are kind of coming through the pipeline a little bit later. And now we're on that sort of secondary phase of the journey, which is how do you evaluate what you have now that's in a better state, but not rest on it and see like everything's done. We're just going to, move along and continue to evaluate where we're going. How do we get better with the ever changing habits of consumers, the retailers, websites updating, and all that kind of good stuff.
What a great path. So you came a long way, and I love the insight on the written content for algorithmic. Still has to appeal to the shopper and be relevant for the shopper, but there is a really important algorithmic aspect, and then the visual part for the imagery and hopefully video. So it's a great call out there. What are you thinking about for the other brands in the portfolio? And how often do you do things, let's say, like refresh content? And how big a deal is seasonal in these categories, or less of a deal? So some of those things.
Yeah, so those are a lot of things that we're thinking about right now. I think we have some brands that are pretty pretty standard across the year, like New York Bakery. It sees some ebbs and flows during periods of time, but the relevance of garlic toast, Texas toast, garlic bread, croutons is pretty strong throughout the course of the year. We have other brands that are really relevant to key holiday periods, like a Sister Schubert's. It does a lot of strong sales, through the Christmas, the New Year's sort of seasonal holiday, Thanksgiving, through to Easter. And so I think thinking about now, do we need, which we do, we just need to get there, is the type of content that a shopper is looking for in mid-November, mid-December, is different visually than what they're looking for as they might think about an Easter holiday in the spring, or just an everyday occasion that they might be serving for in June, July through Father's Day or Mother's Day or something of that nature. And so that's the next, frontier for us. And I think then the other state is really evaluating what is that course of refresh. I think it's easy to rely solely on packaging changes and things like that. But what we're trying to kind of dive into is what are the tools that we have at our disposal to be more proactive about making some tweaks, A/B testing, things of that nature. And so for us, that's really what's on the horizon as we get a little smarter and build on where we are today from a more of a position of strength than just trying to catch up like we've been for the last couple of years.
A great place to be. Tell us a little about retail media. Does that play into what you're doing along with the digital shelf? And if so, how do you think about some of your investments there?
Yeah, so for us, it's become a pretty big source of where we're going, and I think it's a benefit. It's been a benefit in our world, given that we don't have a ton of established spends. We aren't a traditional advertiser in the ways that some other places I've been buying into TV, more traditional vehicles like that, where we've committed years and years and have dollars established to that. And so we had, no debt, as we kind of talk about it internally, towards existing ways of working. And that's enabled us to really take more of a lean into retail media, both on and off platform, as a primary vehicle to reach consumers. I think from our perspective at this stage, we can invest in more of a traditional media vehicle, digital likely, that goes into the broader space. And we're going to leverage probably third-party targeting if we do that. We're going to read some metrics that hopefully will help us feel good about the performance of that asset or that tactic. But they're likely going to be things like traffic, views, things like that. Because we aren't selling directly. Whereas if we can invest through retail media, we're able to then go out and target based off of purchase. Even if it's not our data, it's still data of our core partners that we rely on to get our products in market. And then we're reading those things at an attribution level, be it lower funnel search, mid funnel things like on-site display, or upper funnel things like connected TV, which we're trying to kind of get behind testing and things of that nature. So it's been a big unlock for us. There's still so much to figure out. A couple years ago, it seemed like offsite was this sort of area that was a little scary, and retailers were still trying to figure it out. Now it's become this big unlock. So I don't have it all figured out. I don't know that anybody does, but I think for us, it's been a big unlock and enable us to reach our consumers with greater precision, understand the viability of those investments, and invest in areas that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to in the past.
Yeah. It's a great topic. When you think about, you've got Amazon, you've got Walmart Connect, you've got Instacart, you've got Kroger, many different channels now. What's sort of the high level thinking, or you put your general manager cap on?
Yeah.
Hard to choose, of course, but what's the overall strategy or approach to thinking about investing in these different channels?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. I think that's kind of the silver bullet as we try and figure out the ways of working. I think for us, Amazon's an area of continued exploration. We're selling now for the first time over the last year with one of our licensed brands direct through a first party relationship, and we're looking to grow that partnership overall with some of our shelf stable brands. But the majority of our volume. Salad dressings are refrigerated, frozen garlic bread, frozen dinner rolls. We're a little bit more challenged in that area. As we think about the other three, it really is situationally dependent. Depending on distribution, the store for us really still governs a lot of where we're going and how we're activating. We're obviously seeing continued growth within the e-commerce space, online pickup and delivery, local or online pickup, local delivery, things of that nature. But we're still a grocery business that's reliant on stores. And so that's probably the ultimate filter up front, is to say, how does that play out? And then really then trying to build out and find ways to create programs that are as seamless as they can be across the different touch points. We know that shoppers who shop in both stores and online are more valuable than those that do the other. And so how are we building them that way? How are we partnering areas of opportunity to test, to learn, and to grow? And so it's really situational depending on kind of how we activate in those spaces.
Is there an example of a program you've rolled out recently, or even over the last couple of years, that you think about as, here's really how we'd like to operate, or something that worked really well that you could share with our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, we've done, we launched in our seasonal for Sister Schubert's last spring. We tested content creation through a partner to do content creation more effectively, and then we were able to deliver that content during the key spring seasonal window, so Easter through to Mother's Day for Sister Schubert's, through connected television across a couple of the partners that you mentioned. And I think for us, it was incredibly validating on two levels. One, that we could create content in maybe some non-traditional ways, leveraging creation partners that weren't necessarily an agency, and we're doing so at much more cost-effective levels. As we would say, more good content and fewer pieces of great, as we think about trying to make our dollars work a little harder for us. And then validating that we can deliver that in a TV-like environment, and drive value across the funnel, creating a full funnel program during a key window. So that's one for me. That's a big unlock. As I said, I think a little bit ago, for when I started, I was skeptical of off-platform. It felt like maybe a bit of a margin or money grab as the retailers were trying to figure out their media networks, and that's obviously proven to be a bad thought. I've walked that back quite a bit over the last few years as we think about where we're going, and so. For a company of our size and brands of our size and the types of ways that we've spent in the past, being able to create cost-effective content and deliver that with precision at the upper funnel, kind of connected TV level, whether it's for a product launch or a seasonal or just kind of general awareness is a pretty big unlock and gives us a lot more flexibility than we've ever had in the past.
It's a great one. When you talk with someone in brand about good content, and maybe they're coming from the idea of it's got to be pixel perfect, everything's on the TV screen.
Yeah.
How do you kind of bridge that and get to good content is okay, is something maybe more than okay, something worth doing?
So I think it's, it's a couple things. I think good does not have to mean, good content can be great, and that's confusing in the sense I think for us, good just means more cost effective. But I think it's really the education around
Yeah.
how you want to say democratization of how we can create. The models of the past where we had to go through an agency, they were the only ones that had access to the type of talent, freelance or otherwise, to create the model. And it becomes this. It's not necessarily antiquated, but it's certainly for a company of our size it drives up non-working costs, because then you end up on set with a shoot and you've got layers of people involved in different things. And so I think for me to begin with, it's education around, I have confidence and we as an organization have confidence that we can create in ways that are more cost effective while not sacrificing as much in terms of the final product. And then I think secondarily, it's just that belief that, the better we can be or the more efficient we can be at creation, that's just leaving more of the pie available to distribute. And if you're comfortable with saving X percent on creation, that's going to give you that much more to drive the business and go forward. And so that's been a great thing. I think for us as an organization, we have buy-in from leadership to really test and learn new ways of working. And I think the folks that work on our brand teams, despite the fact that most like me have come from larger organizations with more maybe traditional ways of working, everyone's been more than willing to jump in, test out, and sort of sort it out as we go, which has been awesome, because that's incredible. It makes it far less challenging when people are willing and able to at least jump in and sort of figure out where we're going together, and we're all trying to row in the same direction. And if things don't work, they don't work. But I think there's an understanding of why, and we try not to repeat that as we go forward.
Amazing. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap. I've got a couple of fun concluding questions to ask you that I'm going to throw your way. The first of which is, and I know it's hard to choose only two, but which two people have influenced you the most in your professional career?
It is hard to choose two. So I've listened to some other episodes and I've thought about this. It's a very introspective question. That I think it's given me the opportunity or the challenge of thinking through the different stops and steps along, and so I'd say there's a lot of people that I thought about. There's a lot of things that have I think we're at this stage of our careers, or my career. I'm a product of the different things that have occurred, good and bad, over the years. The different people, good and bad. So what I came down to is two folks, and I have a bonus one that I'll throw in there. But two that are more bookended of my career. So the first is Bill Partica. When I was an intern at Conagra Foods in the summer of 2006 in Omaha, Nebraska, he was the vice president on Healthy Choice. And so at that stage, I changed careers, quote unquote. I had left an IT career. I had gone back to school. Everything was intended to be ticked and tied towards being a brand marketer. But at that point, I drove to Omaha and walked into the office on that first day, really hoping that it would work out. I had been in school for 2 semesters, and as much education as Indiana prepared me with and Kelly prepared me with, it still didn't, prepare me for what was ahead. And the connection that I developed with Bill, who was at that point my boss's boss, he was tough, but I think it provided me with a lot of validation. To go back to school, to accept the role with Conagra full time in their grocery division in Chicago, and he and I have kept in touch at times over the years, and he's just been it's just something that really was validating for me as I move forward. And then the other end of it would be, is my current boss, Carl Staley, who's the president of our retail division at T. Marzetti. Carl for two reasons. One, he's a pro marketer, P&G background, and so when we talk, it's very fluid and informal, but I learn a lot about things and just ways of thinking, and we have a good working relationship in that way. And then secondarily is some of what you've heard throughout, but his belief and confidence in where we're going, and his understanding that not everything's going to work perfectly the first time, but the willingness and the ability to do that has been a huge source of growth and inspiration for me as I think things through. So those are the two main ones. I do have to give a little bit of bonus credit to my wife. We met at Conagra, so she's closer to the professional side. And for anyone it looks at my LinkedIn and is hearing things like I've had a bit of a divergent path to get to this point. There were certainly some choices and things that didn't always seem like they were the greatest and the smartest at times. And she was incredibly supportive along the way. And so I have to give her a shout out for being there and not at some point saying, "What are you doing?" and just hoping and believing that I had some thought process and hope that this would pan out to be as productive as I think it's hopefully been and will continue to be.
Sometimes I feel like our significant others can see the path for us better than we can ourselves.
Yeah, hopefully, right? Yeah. Or at least just that confidence that it'll work out that makes me feel a little bit better, like I'm less crazy than maybe I think I am.
Exactly. Well, those are a great source of inspiration. My other question is, when you do get some time outside of work and spending time with your families, favorite hobbies, things you like to do?
Yeah, I mean the most day-to-day thing would just be walking the dog. We got a COVID dog, Rosie. It was a tough entry to dog world. I think there were some moments I didn't think I was going to make through puppyhood, but now she's 4 and a big part of the family. So I enjoy, whether it's with my wife or kids or just alone, walking the dog. I think more so than if I was to choose one, it would be skiing. It's become a family activity for us that we've done the last few spring breaks. We try to get out and do it together as a family. So that one and traveling would be the bigger ones, especially as my kids get a little older and we can, go on plane rides without screaming and things like that. It's been a good unlock as COVID has sort of subsided to be able to start traveling a bit more.
Great family activity. Great way to see the world. So those are great. Michael, if our listeners want to find you online, what's the best way for them to do that?
I think just LinkedIn. Michael Reda on LinkedIn. There's not too many of us, but there are a few more Michael Redas than you might expect. But I'm on there. I think try to be pretty active with the messaging and ways of working on the platform. And I think that's the simplest and easiest way from my world.
Wonderful. Well, I learned a lot today. This idea you mentioned of one of your mentors or bosses talking about being able to have the conversation, teach and learn, that really resonated for me among many other things that you said. So thanks for sharing that. And thanks for taking the time to speak with me today. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Beyond the Shelf is brought to you by It's Rapid. It's Rapid is the platform Pepsi, Sierra Nevada, Revlon, and hundreds of other leading brands and retailers use to build personalized content at scale. Whether that's images, videos, or product descriptions for their product detail pages, shoppable videos or banners for their digital ad campaigns, or sell sheets for sales enablement, brands that use It's Rapid are able to produce high-quality, on-brand content on average more than 80% faster than category competitors. To find out more, please visit itsrapid.ai. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Beyond the Shelf.